It's now streaming.
Okay, then we're ready. Okay, good evening. It is April 13th, 2022. This is the meeting of the Lafayette Design Review Commission. And we will start with the roll call. Tonight, Glenn Cass.
Present.
Eugene Sim.
Here.
John Gray is present. And our other two commissioners, Kristen Seidel and Armin Hadalou, are not attending this evening. And Nancy Tran is with us for staff. Adoption of the agenda. I would like to suggest that we make an adjustment to our agenda this evening. I suggest that our consent calendar item regarding the O'Neill House, we move that to continued hearings. There may be some discussion on that one. The conditions, as noted in the draft resolution, are a little different than what we spoke about at our last meeting, so I think it's worth discussion.
I second that.
Okay, Eugene, do you? So I'm sorry. If I moved and second, then we can vote. Glenn.
Aye.
Eugene.
Aye.
And John is aye. So agenda adopted as amended. Next on the agenda is public comments for items not on an upcoming agenda or this one, and within the purview of this commission. Nancy, is there anyone in the public who would like to comment?
If anyone would like to comment on items not on the agenda, please use the raise hand function. There's no one on call, so no one's going to press the *9. No one is raising their hands.
Okay. Then moving to our next item on the consent calendar. We have two sets of meeting minutes. March 9th, 2022.
We don't have a quorum for that approval.
Okay. Then we'll have to continue that to our next meeting.
I think we don't.
Is that
I'm trying
right?
to remember who was present that night.
Well, let's
One
just
of them
It was
I-
three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Armin was the third one.
let me just pop that back open.
Yeah, I think
Yes, that's correct. So Glenn, it was you, Armin, and myself. So we will
Yeah.
have to continue that one. The next meeting minutes for March 23rd, all three of us here were in attendance at that meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, Glenn,
Aye.
Eugene,
Aye.
and John is aye. Thank you. Okay, we've got two study sessions this evening. The first is James and Canterbury request to study a house proposed for Mountain Springs Road.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's an item on consent that was pulled, that would be heard first.
I think I suggested that's a continued public hearing, is it not?
Yes.
We've heard it twice, and this will be the third time, and we've chosen to discuss it. Is that the correct place for it on our agenda?
I'm not sure. Glenn?
I don't think it matters that much.
Go for it.
It's up to you.
Looking at our categories, that's my suggestion. So
Okay.
I think we can go to study sessions first.
Okay. Let me just pull up my presentation. The item before you, a study session SS 0422 for James and Canterbury. It's an unaddressed parcel on Mountain Springs Road. The subject parcel is nearly 1.5 acres on the northeast side of Mountain Springs Road. narrow private road zoned R40. The parcel slopes up from south to north with the dramatic changes on the northern end and at the southern end. A vacant lot, the applicant seeks to construct an approximately 2,500 square foot, one-story single-family home with an attached two-car garage on a vacant lot. It's within the Hillside Overlay District. The plans show the building built partially within the upsloping topography and located towards the property's northern property line. The applicant submitted site photos and revised site plans showing a modified location and house orientation. This was what was previously submitted, and this was submitted just recently and forwarded to the commission and uploaded online. After a cursory review of the preliminary plans, the project will require phase 1 and phase 2 hillside development, tree permit, and possibly a grading permit, depending on the total cut and fill proposed. The design commission should speak to the overall organization of the site, location of the building, massing, elevations, and any aspect that could affect the ability to make the findings. Since this is a study session, no formal action is required, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Nancy. And do we have any commissioner questions for Nancy? No questions, then the applicant is invited to make their presentation.
I will promote them.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello. We're experiencing some technical difficulties here.
There
we
we are.
go.
We see you now.
Good,
Here,
okay,
why don't
good.
you- Yes.
Good evening, commissioners and Ms. Tran. I'm Wayne Canterbury. This is Liz James. We are the owners of the Mountain Spring property under review, and we look forward to building a house on it. Just by way of background quickly, I grew up in Danville, went to San Ramon High School, graduated from Cal Berkeley, and have lived in Orinda for the last 30 or so years. I was on the Orinda Planning Commission and have an appreciation for the good work that you folks do. The site in question is a property that we look forward to developing in the most modest way. And we can explain the details to that later, and we're here to answer any questions you may have. I'd like to introduce Liz to you, and she can give some of her background as well.
Hi, I'm relatively new to Northern California, but I moved here to be with Wayne, and I also have a daughter, a son-in-law, and 2 grandchildren in Pleasant Hill. Just also as background, I have an advanced degree in architectural history. I taught for a number of years, but I then moved to the private sector and have since retired from that. But many years ago on the East Coast, I did build a home, and I've also been part of a design review commission with a small community. When Wayne and I were looking for new property, we were really taken by the lot on Mountain Spring. We are hikers and outdoor enthusiasts and really thrilled to be close to Briones. And it's very important to us to keep the natural beauty of the site. So I'll let Wayne elaborate a little bit more on the lot.
Yes, we understand that this is a study session, and we're prepared to advocate for our application, but we really feel that our position here tonight is to listen to what the commissioners have to say and to answer any questions that you have. we want to stress again that our goal is to build a very modestly sized house with as little impact on the land and our neighbors whom we have spoken with, and I can elaborate on that if you'd like. But again, perhaps we could answer any preliminary questions you have, and we're prepared to do that. We also are joined tonight by our architects, and I don't see that they're present on our screen, but they are available to answer any technical questions that you have.
So
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
I'm sorry, so introduce yourself again, please.
I'm sorry. My name is Tara Rios. I'm with Stillwater Dwellings, and I'm the project architect. Good evening, all.
Hi.
And I'm Andrew Wisdom. I'm also with Stillwater Dwellings.
Okay, welcome. Okay, do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant?
I'd like to hear the architect or the designers give us a presentation, what the genesis of the idea is, so we can understand the formulation of the idea concept behind this project.
Did you hear the question?
Maybe I should speak louder. I'm looking for, as one of the commissioners, to see the designers or the architects give us a presentation on what the genesis of this concept, the design of this project was initiated from. Give us a poetry.
All right. Shall I share my screen?
Please.
Okay, just one moment. Unfortunately, it's saying that I cannot share because of the size of the file. Andrew, any chance you're able to? Oh, hold on just one moment, please. Okay, well, we have success.
I believe that you've submitted to Ms. Tran all of the documents in question. I wonder if she could perhaps display them.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, here we go.
Actually, I was able to download it a little bit. So I apologize for the delay. So right here we have our site plan. This is modified from what was originally submitted. After visiting with the site and the client, we have rotated the house, the orientation of the house, and adjusted the location to obtain the best views. The client expressed the desire to have a view of Mount Diablo. So we're trying to orient the house. This is our back wall that will be the patio area, the backyard area. So we're looking for a view. The driveway would start up here, and very close to the setback line here. This is a 20-foot setback on both sides. We're doing some studies with the arborist on this side to make sure that our canopy and the house itself is not impeding in the tree drip line. And I have actually uploaded some photos to demonstrate our location and agency next to the neighbors. So let me go ahead and scroll down a little bit. So we're going to go clockwise around the house, and these are the photos we took at our recent site visit. So this is the project at 3450 Mountain Spring Road. So this is looking from where we were proposing to place the home, and with the view of the neighbor on the side. This is the ridge line where the contour begins to drop. And the desired view is this location here. So this is looking north, northeast. This is the east view. This is actually project west and project north. This is actually due east. So this is looking towards the Mount Diablo area. This is project east. You can see there's a little line here. This is where we've kind of staked out where we would put the home. And this is the neighbor to the east. This is 3442 Mountain Spring Road. So you can see we've got a little bit of a break here, a little bit of a privacy barrier with some trees. And these are the trees we are studying with an arborist to make sure that we are not impeding on the drip line. And this is looking down slope, down south to the edge of the street where the driveway would come up through these trees in this area on this side of the lot. All right, so this, let me zoom out a little bit. So it's going to be a 1-story, approximately 1,750 to 1,800 square feet. We've got a series of different roof lines. So at Stillwater, some of our details are to maximize on views, to maximize on the back outdoor space, creating like an indoor outdoor space. We have a great room here. This is the back area, the back patio, where we're trying to maximize the view to Mount Diablo. So this would be facing northeast, that direction. And our proposal is to have a wall of windows, some sliding doors, some backyard entertaining area. And these are some preliminary elevations that we've done based on some of our designs that we do at our firm. So this is your main entry. You have a garage. There's a little bit of a grade, so we are proposing to do some terracing of the landscape to kind of conform to the existing contour, to soften it so that we don't have too many just large retaining walls. So that's something that we're going to be working with a landscape architect once we get further into the design. This is the back wall that we were talking about. This is our biggest driving point right now, is to maximize, the location of the home, maximizing views, but also keeping in mind the neighbors and privacy. And the last elevation. And this is just a preliminary study that we've had with the arborist. They've come out and looked at all the trees and numbered them, made their recommendations on some trees that might be unhealthy, that might need to be removed, that sort of thing. So that's still very preliminary. And this is the area that I'm talking about when we talk about the drip line, and we're trying to avoid that area. And that is basically the start of our design. This is very conceptual. So if you have any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you. Questions from commissioners?
Yes. From a cut and fill, have you kind of looked at how the project works from earthwork? Is it all balanced? Not much of cut, just naturally placed?
I apologize. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah, I got a bad reception here. I see my face and my gestures going slow here. Maybe my internet in my house is going a little bit off here. Sorry, I'll reserve my questions. I'll let other commissioners talk.
I think what you were asking was cut and fill.
Yeah.
We're trying to balance our cut and fill on this project. We will have to cut a little bit on the northwest side of the home to make sure that we are under the maximum height limit. But our intent is to fill on the southeast side in some terracing to make sure that we're sort of conforming to the land a little bit.
I have a question, actually, a brief question for staff. Nancy, it appears to me, and the applicant can confirm this, The cantilevered roof at the north is cantilevered beyond the property setback. And I'd just like to clarify that as long as the building wall itself does not, that is acceptable. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's usually up to a third, I believe, of the required setback that they can overhang into it.
Okay, so that looks like it's acceptable. Let's see, I did have a question regarding the trees at the driveway near the road. The revised layout shows the driveway getting very close to one of the tall evergreen trees. And I'd like to ask if it is your intent to try to maintain those trees, because the way it's drawn right now, I'm not sure that quite would work for that one tree. You zoom in
Are you?
Right.
right
Perhaps I,
there, exactly.
perhaps I should respond to this. We spent a lot of time on the property and after retaining our arborist. And our concern is to make sure that we don't want to remove any tree or imperil any tree. And we asked him to locate the optimal placement for the drive entrance. Anything further to the south would actually require a much deeper cut because of the grade of the road in relation to the entry grade, existing grade to the property. He has assured us in terms that this design would not have any adverse impact on those trees.
Okay, that sounds great. That answers my question. And one other question I had for the applicant was just to make sure that you are aware of the city's hillside development requirements because of the particulars of your lovely site.
Yes, we have given considerable consideration to that point. And I mentioned that I'd been on Planning Commission for Orinda, and I came to really appreciate the reasons for these regulations. They have legitimate objectives that I and Liz fully subscribe to. We have asked our architects to place this home in a way that will have the least impact on our neighbors, but also in a manner that will be invisible from any public view. Last weekend, we walked along about a quarter mile along Release Valley Road, which is the public road shown on your review map, and took photographs. Our next door neighbors, the Chipmans, built their house years and years ago when apparently the setback requirements were less restricted. You can see their house if you really look carefully through the prolific number of trees that line Release Valley Road. But if you can catch a glimpse, you can see their place. But it's also obvious that our place will not have any element of it exposed to public view.
Okay, thank you. With that, if there are no further questions from commissioners, we can open this to public comment. Nancy, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? The public has up to 3 minutes to make comment each.
Anyone has any comments to make, please use the raise hand function. There are no hands raised.
Okay. Then,
If I can, let me just comment on our neighbors and the fact that when we bought this lot, one of the first things we did was to notify all the neighbors on Mountain Spring that we intended to build. We invited them to express any concerns that they might have to us. We have met with 3 of the neighbors extensively, including the Chipmans to the south and Mike Hughes, whose family, by the way, owned and developed this subdivision back in the 40s and 50s. They've been extremely gracious in their acceptance of our concept. To date, they've expressed no objections, and we've made it clear that we would continue to work with them to allay any fears on that score. We have engaged a landscape architect to formulate a plan to use native species as screens to preserve their privacy and ours. And that's, again, a dialogue in progress.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Commissioner comments, Eugene or Glenn, do either of you like to start?
Glenn, you're quiet today. You're usually
Okay, I can start. I don't have that many comments. Okay, I mean, the only I found the architecture. First of all, I like the idea that this is a small home. Okay, I was expecting when I found out what the location was, is where we're going to get a 5,000 square foot, up there on the hill, very visible. I like the way that it's positioned in there. The only thing that I question, but I think it's more of just how the viewpoint came on the rendering. I saw the rendering before I actually looked at the drawings, and the cantilevered over the patio just looked tremendous in size. And but when I looked at the sections and the scale on the sections, it seemed that was just a camera angle of where they blew that up, and it wasn't really going to be that problematic. I don't know personally whether this is a private road there. So is this a private road?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So is there an agreement on the road conditions, and the city doesn't take an active role in that. So please be aware of that.
Yeah.
Is that you need to work out anything, construction damage or whatever, with other neighbors that are sharing the cost of that. So I like the idea of the materials that were selected. I thought that they were appropriate for that hillside for fire prevention. And I had really no complaints at all. I think that it worked.
Okay. Thanks, Glenn.
If I can, just very briefly, I want to clarify that the driveway depicted on the plan is permeable crushed rock. It's not asphalt, and it's not pavement. Excuse me.
Thanks. Eugene?
Yeah, that's great, Wayne. I really appreciate that as well. So my comments are that I really think this is in a really good direction. It's a very clear articulation of the ordering principles, organizing principles that are there, and the expressions of the form and the way it tries to engage the outside landscape with that iconic cantilever. That's beautiful. I like it a lot. And it gives you shading, of course, but it also, we're not saying this is Franco right, but expressing the horizontality to pull in and pull out the inside-outside relationship. That's beautiful, I think. And then also the way you are consistent with the language of how you fenestrate the partie. The long linear pieces are glassed and glazed, that is. And then the shorter dimension where you create the sectional profile toward the lower hill areas as if it's almost like the bird or something like out there. It's kind of very nice and soothing to see it. And I think the choice of hardy board, that's a good choice as well, I think. I don't think you're using rain screen here, you're probably just applying on, but it's nice. So my concern would be that in the future, we certainly would like to see the mature color board, right? Further articulate that. I know that you don't have a lot of neighbors nearby, but I'd still be interested in how your section looks into the landscape and grabs it. Obviously, it's a private property, Wayne and Liz, you guys will enjoy it. But just like to help you guys achieve it further to show support in that regard. And then vent stacks, stack bench, you got toilets and bathrooms, right? And kitchen and laundry room, and those who will poke up. So make sure your roof is beautiful as well. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eugene. So my comments, I agree with Glenn and Eugene. I think this is a very elegant design that looks like it will fit really well on the site. I couldn't say it better than Eugene, but I will say that your attitude toward privacy and toward low profile, I think we're all in great sympathy with that. To document that so that we all understand it, I would pick up on what Eugene said about site sections, diagrammatic site sections showing screening to your adjacent neighbors. And I'm sure it will prove the point that you've already made, which is that there are not significant direct views. We also like to know that from a distance, the house should not be especially visible. And my sense is it probably won't be. But there's always the conflict between you wanting to see out and what other people will see in. So from a distance, it would be helpful to have some kind of a diagram or a photograph of the property from a distance where it would be visible. Let's see. From a design standpoint, the one place that probably I would see as the biggest challenge to design elegantly is the corner that is most to the south, where the grade falls away from the house and you're looking at doing some landscape terracing. There's going to be a significant height difference between your floor grade and the natural grade that's right there. So I will be interested to see your landscape solution for that corner, in a way that feels natural with the house and with the design and with the property. But I think you've made an excellent start. I appreciate that you all seem to understand what we're after and embrace it on your own. So we look forward to seeing the next steps.
Thank you very much for feedback.
And with that, we can move on to our next agenda item. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Welcome.
So the next study session on our agenda is Soldier Field Partners for the house at 7 Lucas Ranch Road. Lot 7, and the street number is 88. And Nancy, I believe you're muted.
Got that. The item before you is study session 0522 for Soldier Field Partners at 88 Lucas Ranch Road. The subject property is one of the 8 residential lots within the 90-acre subdivision approved in 2006, known as the Lucas Ranch Estate Subdivision. This lot is lot number 7, and it is nearly 6 acres. It's zoned LR10 and is currently vacant. It's within the Hillside Overlay District, and it downslopes from north to south for the majority of the parcel. And then it upslopes at the southern portion as it approaches the Class 2 ridgeline to the south. The applicant seeks to construct an approximately 6,300 square foot, 1-story single family home with an attached 3-car garage on the lot. After a cursory review of the preliminary plans, the project will require phase 1 and phase 2 hillside development and possibly grading depending on the total cut and fill. Since this is a study session, there's no formal action required. This concludes my presentation.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Commissioners, any questions for Nancy? No questions. Then the applicant may make their presentation.
I will promote Jeff Stone.
Good evening, commissioners. And Nancy, would you mind adding Dennis Giacovelli into the panelists as well, please? And my apologies, I'm actually at Moraga's City Council right now going over some RENA stuff. So I'm sorry that I'm on my phone, but I'm trying to do 2 public hearings at the same time, which is, as you all know, challenging when some are in person and some are on Zoom. I will have Dennis Giacovelli, who's the project designer that we're working with. As you all know, can people hear me?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, good evening. It's good to see you all. I hope you've been doing well through everything. This is our last application through Lucas Ranch. This is the final lot. We are finally under construction for lot 4. Lot 6 is in Contra Costa County now. And the final project in that 8 lot subdivision is Lucas Ranch Lot 7. This has been one of the most challenging lots that we've looked at from multiple perspectives. First, there is East Bay mud water tank. There's the PG&E facilities. There is an easement that we've been negotiating with East Bay Regional Parks as well as the city of Lafayette to ensure that there will be access up and over Lucas Ranch and to the contiguous lot owner so that we can secure some sort of long-term trails on the Calaveras Ridge Trail from the roundabout down at the at Olympic and up over Lucas Ranch and up through Lot 7, up over the hillside. And then hopefully, as we've had conversations with East Bay Regional Park, into Las Trampas, which would be very exciting for me, as you all know that I'm very involved in Save Mount Diablo, and I'm obviously very familiar with John Muir Land Trust. It would secure an actual trail easement for and in perpetuity for the members of the Lafayette community to come up and over Lucas Ranch, over Lot 7, and then up and into Alamo and Danville, which I think is a great opportunity. And hopefully one day it'll connect to Moraga. The part of where we're at on it is we came to study session before going to a phase 1, phase 2 approval, because unfortunately the subdivision that I've ended up with from an engineering geology as well geotechnical standpoint, we have a problem where the siting and massing has occurred for the constructs of what was thought through of a phase 1 approval before we took ownership. There's been grading that have occurred after and before we have taken any sort of participation in the project. We've met with multiple owners, and from a siting and massing standpoint, what we're particularly looking for tonight is to get some feedback of, first, we're offering a single-story home. We are obviously changing the location and placing it inside of a scenic easement, and we're trying to figure out the best location on the property to site and mass this property. We're open to suggestions. There is currently a pad that makes most sense that we can hide this property away from not only the other properties on Lucas Ranch, but also from the properties that are across the way. What we are bringing forward, and Dennis can go into detail about the particular architecture, is a design that will really go into that hillside. And we've been thoughtful, and we've tried to place the property in a way that, from, again, the engineering geology, from a civil engineering, and from an overall standpoint of offsite impacts, makes most sense for both the development and for the contiguous neighbors, that allows us to have not only the trail, but better the overall project in a way that we feel proud of after we finish in these 8 homes. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of questions, but Dennis, maybe you can get into some of the details of our process and where we're at. And again, thank you for the opportunity to bring this project through the design review board.
Well, I don't know if I can improve on that. Like Jeff said, the location we're choosing, we hope, is a win-win for everyone in the area. We're tucking this back as far as we can in this flat area, existing flat area. Yes.
Dennis, can you show us on the screen your plan, and so we can follow your narrative plus the diagrams and plans so we can associate them together? Thank you, Dennis.
If I could suggest we start with your drawing A 1.1 that shows the various setbacks and easements.
Can you see this?
Give us
Not
just a
yet.
moment. It's loading. There it is. Yes, we see it.
All right. This area right here is the area, the only place on the lot where you're not in one of the easements. There's from front to back in this area, a 30-foot drop. And it's right next door. There's an existing house right next door, which group two houses together makes it look like twice the bulk, twice the light, twice the privacy issues. So we are proposing to push it over. This area here is flat. Our road comes off the existing road. Oh, here's the existing Lucas Ranch Road. Our road comes off, driveway comes off of here. A turnaround, here's the garage. The house itself, the great room wall is right here at the tip of my fingers. It's 33 feet back from the toe of the existing hill.
Dennis, can you zoom in a little bit so that it's a little more clear? By any chance?
Maybe close the comments on the right side of your screen. There we are. Thank you.
If it looks like I'm looking the other direction, it's because I have a bigger monitor over here. So this is the existing flat area. That's where we propose that not only is it beneficial to us to build there, but for all the neighbors, because we are tucking this structure back into the hillside without having to do much grading because it is level. I think we have a 3.5 to 4 foot retaining wall across the back here, which just allows us to have a little airspace. The other thing is, if we built on the other side here, we would have an extremely tiered house. It would look like a 3-story building. We have a 1-story building. I have it at 17'5" in the middle. If you want to look at the elevations, 17.5 in the middle, and then comes down to 12.5 on each side. So it sort of mimics the hillside behind it. It's also the road right behind it is actually just above the line, the roof line of the house. So it's completely within that area. As you can see, what I was talking about earlier is this wall. Let me give you here's the section. The actual wall of the house where the windows are is 33 feet back from this toe of the hill. So that is not only good for privacy, but it's good to keep the light from the house away from the neighbors. The activity area just in front of the great room, the outside area with the barbecue and the TV, actually is self-contained. It has walls on either side, so it literally funnels the view out so that no one on the sides can see you, both for privacy and for light.
Dennis, can you go back to the site plan and let's just address the gorilla in the room? I want to implore the good faith that I have already accrued, hopefully, through this panel. I've removed approximately 30,000 square feet of square footage that was priorly approved on this entire subdivision, and in a way that I hope that the commission, the council, and the community sees as a beneficial subdivision from what was priorly approved by the developers. This particular site is incredibly difficult because of the engineering, geology, and the 3-story nature of what we would have to build to try to even get a roadway down to the area that was thought through in the pre-planning and the tentative map phase of what would be developed. There's no secret, there's no side, and we tried to highlight where the conservation scenic easement and a riparian fence would be located. First, from a civil engineering standpoint, ISAT from Human has updated, and this riparian setback should have never been placed on this tentative map process in the subdivision the way that it was created, considering that the water goes through and down the hill to the actual riparian area that borders 6 and then down to the contiguous lot owner. We are proposing a project that is in the ridge setback line. We're bringing it up, but by bringing it up, and we're happy to create documentation and renderings to show that we believe and we can show that the type of property we would have to bring, like the one priorly approved in the phase 1 entitlement, would be much more visible and much more of an impactful project. So it's for this commission, there's no secret that we are bringing this project into and through a conservation and scenic easement. It is in a riparian setback. It is next to a PG&E facility. It is next to an East Bay mud facility, but from an overall developability and an opportunity to develop this site in a way consistent that with the way that we have built out the rest of the project, we feel that this is the best way for the town, for the city to move forward and to have something that makes sense for the remaining 7 lots as well as the lots that are across the valley.
Okay, thanks much. So actually my question is for staff. Nancy, looking at this plan and all the various setbacks that the applicant has to deal with here, the issues here are beyond the purview of the Design Review Commission. I think, we are happy to provide input regarding building design. But as far as the acceptability and the variances that would be required to build in the setbacks this way, Nancy, what would the approval process be?
Because it's in the scenic easement, I believe in order to alter that, we would have to go to City Council when it comes back for entitlement. So Design Review, Planning Commission, and City Council.
Okay. So then you'll understand that going forward. I think that the feedback I'm expecting that we provide you will support your case.
Mr. Gray, if I may, my understanding as a land use attorney, we would have to go back and adjust our tentative map. We would have to address some of our CEQA documents, and we would have to prove from a civil engineering as well as the engineering geology, as well as any of the conditions that were affecting from the prior conditions of approval granting the subdivision, that those would be consistent with any biologic or other issues before we are able to come back to you for approval of this home.
Well, that makes sense to me. Nancy, makes sense to you? Okay, then with that, thank you very much. Do commissioners have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I have 2 questions.
Glenn, go
Can
ahead.
Dennis show me where the original earlier building pad location was on this site plan?
Mr. Cass, first of all, it's nice to see you. The issue is that Ward Young, who did the phase 1, which I've tried tirelessly to get into some digital form, has hand drawn this, and I'm trying my best to get that into a representative form. I should have that within the next week, which I'll be able to share. It is right to the right of lot 7. So if Dennis is able to zoom in to the lower, if we're looking at plan, it would be plan south. You go down, Dennis, please. Can you zoom in to the blue portion? If you look at the ridgeline setback, the prior plan is between the ridgeline setback in the blue that goes planned north down into the riparian setback. That square in the bottom left corner where his mouse is now is where the prior plan was considered to go through. I met with my engineering geologists and geotechnical engineers, and we don't believe that we can get a road down there like they did to lot 6, which was constructed at the improvement plan standpoint, because we have many slides and colluvium deposits that have made the rest of this project difficult.
Okay, and my second question is on the scenic easement. If I understand correctly, you, on the previous lots, we had the issue about visibility from Burton School. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you will not see the building at this location from Burton School.
No, sir. This is so far back, and what I'm this particular property is right next to PG&E. It's the most isolated spot on the lot, and especially how Dennis has designed it. The second side that I'm looking into is if there is a net loss on the conservation and scenic easement, I would look to adding conservation and scenic easement to lot 4 and lot 2, so that they're in losing this part of that conservation and scenic easement to the city of Lafayette. I would add, in addition to what we have here, to a net benefit, so that the city feels as though the conservation and scenic easement that was in place at the time of the granting of this tentative map would be at a benefit to the city's net conservation benefit.
Okay, that sounds good. One last question. You said that you're working on a trail.
Yes, sir.
Where exactly are you
So-
looking at the trail?
So right to the right-hand side, that easement's already been granted with East Bay Regional Parks. Now I've been negotiating with a couple of the other contiguous landowners of how it would go up that hill where his hand is now. I'm widening that for East Bay Regional Park so that it's a softer, less of a switchback sort of process to get up that hill that's on the other side of where that creek is down by the riparian setback. So it would go to the right. East Bay Mud, unfortunately, won't play ball. It makes most sense to go on their property. They don't want to. So we're addressing and adjusting our own property so that the trail is more user-friendly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. Other questions for the applicant?
Yes, to the designer, Dennis. Dennis, as a design review commissioner, my prerogative is to focus on the building and the physical manifestation of how you're organizing it and so on. I think looking at this plan, can you tell me what the footprint, the lot coverage was when it was in the original one by the riparian setback zone that Jeff alluded to, and now you're siting up here up on the hill? What is the lot coverage difference? How much more are you lot covering?
Unfortunately, I was not involved at that time, so I have to defer to Jeff.
I think it's a really good question, and unfortunately, I don't have that data available to me, but I can get that data. I know that we're subtracting a few thousand square feet. We're reducing height. We're making a 2.5, 3-story building into a single story. But from light coverage and to do an analysis from the offsite, I haven't taken the project that far yet, just because I wanted to get some initial feedback from the commission of whether or not this was even something you would consider before I spend too much in this process.
Sure, Jeff. So Jeff, Dennis, back to you, Jeff. Dennis, I think there's a trade-off. I get the fact that there's a lot of constraints down near the riparian setback, and I understand from Jeff's articulation of all these other factors there. So if we're to consider this another location just on the building and design physical manifestation of the structure, I'd like to know what more of impact you're doing on a lot coverage standpoint, because when you go up 3 stories or whatever, 2.5 or whatever that was, your footprint would be shallower and you would get more verticality, maybe. And then in this case, you get more horizontality, and you're cutting in and cutting a little bit onto the hill there. And then you're going to have more mass, visually, shown toward the lower hill, right, downhill area. So I'd be interested in understanding about, first and foremost, just like I did with the previous applicant, can you tell me, saying that this is something to be considered as this new location, not knowing all the other ramifications, just so that you present to us this location today with Jeff, can you tell us what your design ideas are? I know you mentioned that it's on a pad and all that, but can you get to the design poetry of this project? Like, what was your design elements, and how did you compose it? What was the organizing principle?
Well, before Dennis jumps in there, I want to address one thing. From a floor area ratio, this is in subtraction. From a horizontal standpoint, although yes, you have a more spread out siding and massing, by placing it back into this hillside, and by looking at Plan North, that entire wing that goes back into that hillside, you've effectively hidden that from the public view. And I can show that in 3D renderings later on. So I want Dennis to answer his question, but I think you will find through a more 3D model of showing this property from a FAR and a siding and massing standpoint, we've done a better job of hiding not only the verticality, but also the horizontal structure as it stands for the rest of this property. Go ahead, Dennis. Sorry to jump over you.
And also the difference between a stepped house down the slope that would be on the other side. The problem with that is you have, everything has to face downhill. Ours, we have half the house facing uphill. So for both privacy, light issues, you're not seeing half the house. When you step it down the hill, you lose that back wall to windows.
Well, Dennis, I'm not convinced yet, because you're not showing me any diagrams or cross-section, longitudinal section to convince me. I'm just staring at a two-dimensional diagram here, staring at it for the last couple of minutes. But I know you could, Dennis, and also Jeff, I know you guys could demonstrate, but we're just looking at what you are presenting today. Based on that, what can we give you from a feedback standpoint to give you the right direction or understand what other issues are out there? So having this as please let us know.
If they can see what that looks like.
Right? From a plan, how you organize the plan. Are there views? Like, okay, let me just tread toward where I'm trying to get at. What are the opportunities and where are the constraints? And what did you do to create your structure around those constraints and opportunities? I know that you guys are expressing constraints on the other side, but I'm at the new site. You're showing us the new site location. For us to evaluate, we need to know what now the new opportunities and new constraints are there.
I think those are all very fair comments, and we look forward to itemizing and showing those. Dennis, do you have any of the 3D renderings that you can show on site, or at least some cross sections?
I don't, other than you look at my backdrop there.
Commissioner Sim, I think it's a good point. Again, I think where we are in the process, and if we need to site and mass it into another location, unfortunately, this is a little bit of a trickier one, as we all know, from a standpoint. I can continue to build upon that, but for us as the developer to understand path forward, I think it's good for the commissioners to understand what the existing conditions are, what the potential restraints are from a legal and a tentative map standpoint, so that we can build upon whether or not you are looking at this saying absolutely not, or hey, with more information, I think you're on the right path, so that we know to invest a little bit further on what we're looking at.
Well, I think the planning, I used to be a planning commissioner for 16 years in a city. We always dealt with CEQA, EIR, a neg deck, all those other tools and site planning strategies. Then the design review board was tasked to look more detailed with the buildings, right, structure. And obviously we have to think holistically, Jeff. So you're right. You have to think about the big picture as well. But I'm looking at this elevation. I have a site plan. I have a floor plan. Those are things that I'm looking at to see whether we could even consider a nice building on that location, right? If it is to be reviewed further by planning commissioners and the city council perhaps, right? It seems like one of those that will go up the chain, right? So my question, right? I'm not here to make any comments yet, right? This is a questioning session. And so Dennis, you're the designer. I just need to know what the design ideas were on this particular location so we could give proper comments, and that would be recorded for the commissioners, planning commissioners and city council to look at, evaluate the benefits and possibilities of that. It might look good, right? And reasonable on this location. So just question, Dennis. So, I know you have a storyline behind this. How did you mass it? What are those things that you're showing more windows about? And what was the rationale between the articulation moves that you did on this building and how you cited it on that location at the top? If I'm not clear, let me ask. I don't know if I could be clear. Dennis, am I being incorrect here in asking you these questions, or are you able to answer some of that so I can help?
Sure. As I said, well, first of all, we looked at this to try and hide it, because we know everything is going against this already. It's in many setbacks. It's in every possible place you can say no to. So our only benefit here is to hide it. And by pushing it back into this ledge, I was trying to do that, but also keep it low, keep a nice mountain looking, it goes to a crescendo, comes up in the middle, goes back down to the two sides. We're doing everything to try and hide it. The main portion of the activity areas is also pushed back farther yet, so that you can enjoy those areas without having people on the sides or in front see you, hear you, see your lights. We're trying to keep the visibility of this house and its functions down. The rooms in the back are children's rooms, and that's why there's a little play area in the back. Keeps the noise out, keeps the kids in a more protected area, a private area.
Can you go to the floor plan, Dennis? Sorry to interrupt you. I'm trying to follow your narrative, and thank you for doing that, Dennis. Okay. Okay.
So here's a playroom.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the children's bedrooms. And if we go back to the site plan, you'll see that there's a small play area in the back with a short retaining wall. So that keeps half of the house, the activity, the light, the noise, going the opposite direction. This side here is the side that is going to face the easement, which will be the walkway. What is it called?
Trail.
Trail. Yes. So there's very little openings on that side. You can see the only windows are very high. The front door We're not making a big deal out of the entry. The whole house sits within itself. It's multi-leveled. So it is articulated both in height and front to back, side to side. The rear, again, has all the children's bedrooms, bathrooms, and their activity stays in the back.
And what are the materials?
The bulk is stucco. The highlighted areas are horizontal wood siding, and then the stone columns.
And what about colors?
Bright pink.
If you look at my rendering here.
Okay.
The only thing I'll say there is we have ideas, we have concepts. We're not through phase one yet to come to you guys with materiality, colors, a color board, or anything of that nature. But I think the other thing to add on to is that it's a flat roof for a very specific reason. It's tucked into the hill and cut in for a specific reason. It's off of the toe of the slope for a specific reason. All of the lessons that we've learned over years of developing in Lafayette, we've applied into the concept phase of why we believe that this makes most sense for where this project sits. I've worked in 3 different other concepts of where we could place this home, and we can make it bring it closer to where the driveway comes down. It's a much more visible home. So I think, again, and I'm sorry to try to, and I'm not trying to be disingenuous of trying to get to what materiality is, but we're frankly not there yet to say, hey, what is the color board of this, and what is the structure, so long as it's under the assumption that we're going to pick surfaces and finishes and being mindful that they will camouflage the best they can into the existing hillside so that they decrease offsite impacts to the best of our ability.
Okay, and is the fire department going to require you to have a hammerhead on that driveway?
They
Or-
won't, because they can go from the high side, and we'll have 150 feet of hose that will come from the left and the right side of the property. We studied this with the civil engineer, and because the road that goes to the PG&E facilities, they'll be able to get 150 feet of hose from left and right, and we have a fire hydrant back that's already been installed for the rest of the subdivision.
Great.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we can open this to public comment. Public can speak for up to 3 minutes each. Nancy, is anybody waiting to speak?
If anyone would wish to make a comment on this project, please use the raise hand function. I'm not seeing any hands. If I may add, I did find the project plans that were submitted for the phase one for this property, if you are interested in seeing it. And then with
Please.
regards to the color materials, there is a design guidelines for the subdivision. So there are a limited amount of a color scheme that they would have to choose from. So I will share the plans that were previously. And what was approved for phase one was 8,100 square feet.
Okay, I think that's very helpful. Thanks, Nancy. Any other commissioner questions on? Yeah, okay, this does tell a
Okay.
story.
Sorry, I don't have my mouse, so I'm using the trackpad and I'm clunky.
Looks a lot bigger than mine.
Okay, thanks, Nancy.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, then with that, we are to commissioner comments. Glenn, do you want to start this one?
Yeah, I like the architecture. I have no problems with it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of hurdles to go over that aren't going to be determined by design review. The idea that we're in the scenic easement is going to be a hard thing for them to adjust to. But I understand why you're doing it. But so architecturally, I like the design. I have no problem with the design and the functionality of the children in the back and the other bedrooms in the back, and building into the hillside to some extent to shield it. So I really I'm sitting well with the current design.
Thanks, Glenn. Eugene?
Yes, I think for me, I think this has bigger picture issues that obviously, like Glenn said, will be addressed down the road. Just looking at the building, Dennis, thank you for taking us through your building. I think there's a planning concept within the building looks pretty straightforward and constructive. I think the concern I would have is how you are going to situate in the property there, but that you and Jeff had mentioned that it'll be tucked in, but I don't know what that means, right? The tucking in. So my request would be, because this is our opportunity as commissioners to direct, I would need to see a lot more drawings, cross sections, of course. I would need to see the view from the downslope areas toward this building, both nighttime and daytime, because you got big windows there. And, you know, will they be in nighttime sky, what do you call light sky compliance issue? What is that word? You know, the pollution, right? We don't want the light all over the place, right? So making sure that happens. I will also want to see more articulation in the building. Especially if you're asking for this additional deference to relocate out of a previously entitled approvals, you know, demonstrate with more articulation detailing. Like I would like to see more roof overhangs if you can. You know, your buildings look articulate enough when you see it as an urban feature, but this is more of a suburban, up the hill, flat, very, very long look toward the downslope side of people. So it's going to look like a big building, even though it's one story versus the other that was 3-story clustering look. The other one that I just saw through Nancy's upload was much more massing wise, articulate. I get it. It may have looked bigger on the hill, but it's all relative, right? If you can really articulate your building, and you try to do that, I think. So my observation is that the stucco and the, is it hardy? I don't know if it's hardy, but wood, those are good. That helped to break it apart. But I would like to see deeper overhang, more shadow points, so it's not flat. Okay, that's it. I don't have much more to say. I need to see more drawings, more contextual drawings. I think Chair Gray will say this again. In this kind of very sensitive project site with all kinds of requests for variance or some other thoughts on the big policy issues with City Council and Planning Commissioners, I think you need to really demonstrate through more drawings and sections to demonstrate that you are achieving that approach that Jeff and Eula have articulated tonight, right? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks, Eugene. So having visited the site, I have to say, I think you put the house the only place you really can. It was pretty evident where it had to go. And the fact that that is in some, that is in conflict with your previous approvals is something to go through. But I will say that from the standpoint of the building and that site, and not in the context of some of the other biological issues, because that's not my expertise. But from a visibility standpoint, from a site technical usability standpoint, I'm very much in support of the decisions you've made and what you're showing here. To agree with Eugene, to tell your story, I think site sections are very useful. Some of the properties that you're visible to are quite a distance away. There's a ranch way down below you that will be looking straight up the hill at you. And I think a sensitive landscaping could make this house completely invisible to them. Similarly, there is a house quite in the distance at, if I picked the address correctly, 9275 Rora Drive, way down the hill. There's a home that has a big stand of pines behind it. So it's not very visible from this property. And probably this property is not very visible to it. But again, I think some careful landscaping that wouldn't interfere with your view out, but that would screen the view from below and the view to below will help with the success of this project. Eugene's suggestion about overhangs is a good one. I think you're doing some of that already, and maybe just the way it's rendered would tell that story better. But to have play of shadow would tend to reduce the sense of large uninterrupted plains that some of your elevations suggest right now. I think you've got some hurdles, as we've all said, outside this group, but from my standpoint, I think the approach is very commendable for how you're concealing this house in a very exposed property.
So if I heard that right, it's approved?
We can, not quite yet, but I think you're hearing.
I'm sorry for the joke. This one's a tough one, as you guys see.
I think you're hearing support.
I really appreciate all the comments. It's incredibly helpful. And to each commissioner, we appreciate this insight, and that's frankly why I like to do the study session too. Let us develop this a little bit further. Let us understand the next process with the city and staff, and then we will certainly, with all the comments that have been delivered tonight, as we come back to the design review, hopefully with the project somewhere near this, we'll have these comments in mind, and our next set of plans will reflect hopefully an improvement upon the plans that we already have in place. But again, thank you for the support, and to at least understand the challenges that we face and the restraints, and in a way that we can hopefully build something that we're all proud of.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Good night.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the continued hearing for the O'Neill House at 3930 Canyon Road. So Nancy, if you could take us through what has been changed from the last time we met and spoke about this project. And you're muted.
Just a brief summary. DR0222 was continued from March 23rd to allow the time for the project representative to consult with their client regarding staff's approval recommendation with added conditions, which were sort of at the last minute, to remove the second kitchen and require deed restriction on the property to restrict single family tenancy between both buildings. Since the last meeting, the applicant revised the floor plans. This was the previous floor plan. They revised it to remove the cooking facilities in the detached clubhouse. The planning director was amenable to the removal and reconsidered the required deed restriction. As such, the conditions of approval was revised to stipulate that both structures are occupied by the same household and that neither are occupied by a separate household. Since publication of the staff report, staff received one public comment from Bob Mclean, which was forwarded to the commissioners. earlier this afternoon and also uploaded online. He had made some 5 points. One was a procedural issue regarding the change condition, which is addressed. It was pulled from the consent calendar. The second was project-specific condition to prohibit the conversion to habitable space for the second unit. That was his recommendation. Third is clarification of whether the sink outside the bathroom is actually a trigger for a second dwelling unit. Fourth is there's a concern that we're setting a precedent of what's considered a cooking facility, and that we should not have recommended approval with the second kitchen in the first place when it first was brought to the commission. But that was an error on my part. That was my oversight. So for number 2, after consulting with senior management, the city is not recommending a specific condition requiring that no cooking facility is allowed in that detached building, since it's already been addressed in the revision. And should the applicant wish to add it in the future, they would have to convert it into a separate dwelling unit through like the ADU process or SB9 or whatever process is available in the future. Or remove it completely as a code enforcement issue. When reviewing the projects for number 3, and when staff reviews projects, if there's a wet bar outside of what you would see in a kitchen, that's sort of a red flag for us to make sure that it's not going to be used as a second unit. But because of recent legislation for housing or for ADUs, we do allow it,
But this isn't an ADU though.
no, it's not. But if they choose to put in a wet bar, we wouldn't require a deed restriction like we did in the past, just because of recent legislation. And in terms of what's considered a cooking facility, the municipal ordinance, it doesn't define cooking facility, nor does the ADU state legislation. But staff has reviewed it as a permanent cooking facility, permanent facility such as a cooktop or an oven that's permanently installed and not a portable unit.
Okay, Nancy, then is that your presentation? Thank you. Commissioner, questions for Nancy? Hearing none. The applicant may not have been expecting to make a presentation, but they are welcome to if they would like. Is the applicant here?
Yes, I will promote them to.
Hello. I bet you guys thought you were done with me on this project. It's nice to see you guys again. We after working with staff and our client, they were okay with the conditions as proposed tonight. So we're good to go from our end. Brief presentation.
Okay, thanks. Any commissioner questions for the applicant?
If I may also just add, I'm Matt Brando with the development team. Just for a point of clarity, the California residential code states that a dwelling unit is in your package is a single unit providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, and cooking and sanitation. And our client willingly removed all cooking elements from the clubhouse, thus making it a single family dwelling unit. And while they're abiding and agreeing to the single family household, we don't think it's necessary. It is a bit redundant. If you have a single dwelling unit currently in Lafayette, you can have other residents, other households live in your unit. And so this is a bit of a burden, but with the energy and desire to move forward, they are willing to accept it.
Okay, thanks. We do have the opportunity for public comment here. Nancy, if anyone from the public wants to speak for up to 3 minutes, they may.
If anyone has any comments on this item, please use the raise hand function. There are no hands raised.
Okay, then on to commissioner comments. Glenn or Eugene, do either of you feel like starting?
I don't have any really comments.
I'm gonna live with what staff has, although personally, I think that not having a restriction in writing on the resolution about the kitchen, it has the same comment that I made on the previous meeting, is 1 microwave away from a kitchen. But, okay. I'm ready to approve the resolution as it's been amended.
Okay, I concur. I have no further comments. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Go ahead, you.
I moved it.
Eugene said so moved.
Yeah. Let's move.
Okay, I second it.
Okay, then all in favor. Glenn?
Aye.
Eugene?
Aye.
And John says aye. Very good, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for more of your time.
And
Okay.
we've got the 14-day appeal period that you're aware of.
Yes.
And with that, the resolution is adopted. Thank you. Good night. Okay, continuing on our agenda, there are no new public hearings. Other business requests for ARC volunteer this Friday, April 15th.
I can do it.
Thanks, Glenn. Any commissioner reports this evening?
I have a suggestion. Maybe it won't fly, but I was thinking it might be interesting to do a review of some of the projects that we have approved, whether we do it in the field to look at some of them, or whether we do it visually with photographs or whatever. And the reason I bring that up is good that Scott isn't on there anymore, is I have some second feelings about Brown Avenue, what we did or what we didn't do there. The articulation is not as defined as what I thought. It appears, to me, it appears a lot flatter. You know, there's a change in materials, but it still appears pretty homogeneous and not as articulated as it did on the drawings.
Do you think
And
it diverged from the drawings, or is it just, do you think it diverged from the drawings, or is
No, I don't think it. I just think that, you know, when you're articulating only a foot back, you know, on paper, it looks okay, but when you actually see it in reality, it doesn't reflect much articulation, a foot, you know? And maybe it isn't a foot, maybe it's 16 inches, but I'm just saying is that, you know, as they're building the building, I'm looking at it, it's like, wow, that wasn't as good as I thought it was going to come out, you know? And that's my own opinion. But I thought that maybe some of these multifamily, not so much on single family dwellings, because we have a harder time to access them, or just, it's not the interior, it's basically the exterior. But I thought maybe some of the Woodbury things, you know, now that they're got some of them built, whether or not you wanted to look at them from color, articulation, see whether it came out the way we really thought what we were achieving.
How can we do that consistent with our public process? You know, if we want to deliberate in a way that's not binding on any project, but really for our own sort of internal education.
I think it's an education thing. And when we've done education, like when we've gone to that, to Sonoma State, you know, it's just an educational thing.
Well,
We have no we have no ability to undo any of these projects. It's just a matter of how they reflect what we thought they were going to reflect.
Yeah. So Glenn and John, I think that's a great idea, Glenn. In my previous experience, we used to kind of like, we don't want to overstaff Nancy and team there, but once in a while, we would have like review of maybe certain projects to give us some better feel on how we could do our job better. And it was all advertised as well, so that, you know, these are all agendized with the proper notice. And so all community knows that we're going to be talking about it as well. We're not hiding in the backyard and
Yeah.
right? Nothing like that, right? It's part of our regulation, right? Robert's Rule of Law, Order, and also the way the public transparency formats work. So I think that's a great idea, Glenn, whether it's a visiting site or do just a review, and then what each one of us could go visit site on our own, because having a site public notice is more difficult, right? You notice that 5 design review commissioners will be at the site. You got people showing up and you go like, what's this meeting about?
But if it's not a hearing,
right?
if it's not a hearing,
Yeah.
and there's no decision coming out of it, and no relevance to any decision that's pending, and
Right.
it's just reviewing a prior decision, with a tablet in one hand and looking up at a project in the other. If that's permissible, I think that would be very useful.
It is, as long as you advertise, I think, everything. Just keep it all transparent.
Well, then maybe Nancy, we could pose that question to staff: is how may we do this consistent with whatever the applicable portion of the Brown Act is? And I would hope that because we're not talking about approving or disapproving anything, that it simply wouldn't apply, and it would just be about discussions for our own education, if you will.
Okay. I will double check with the city attorney on that.
But it also,
Well, the other thing that I was going to throw out is, we went to Sarah's going away thing. So that was the first time that John and I had met each other in 2 years.
oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we just physically, we haven't, Kristen, Armin, none of us have seen each other other than Zoom. And I thought, well, we could, Brown Avenue could be one of them. And then we could walk over to the Tutus and have, brunch or something.
Yeah, and we all know what we may and what we may not discuss.
Yeah.
But we
I did have the chance to meet Kristen once when we did a color review at the Woodbury.
Okay.
But it's true that at some point we're going to have to decide if we're going to actually get together for in-person public hearings.
Well, city council is deciding that, and they'll make the announcement for us.
Oh wow.
It's not our decision, really.
Yeah. I will say that as much as I like face-to-face, I find the Zoom format very democratic, that we can all see each other, and the community access is very easy.
That's good.
But Glenn, you're right. That's not something we're going to decide here.
I just want to let you know they are working on maybe doing a hybrid version, so Zoom and in person. But I don't hear of any talk about a certain date just yet. They're still working out the kinks.
Well, it's spiking again though.
We're just waiting for the next iteration of BA2-3,
Hey, I want to say thank you to Nancy. A big shout out. I know you handled quite a bit today and really appreciate it. I want you to know that. Thanks, Nancy. You hang in there. I know, and also, when we say this, Nancy, don't worry. You guys got to also push back and say we're overloaded or something, right? But see if there's a way to help get that down the road whenever it could be. But Nancy, thank you very much.
Indeed. Which brings us to staff liaison reports. Anything else, Nancy, that you would like to share with us this evening?
I'm not aware of anything to forward to the commission. That's all.
Okay, then with that, we can say good night. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Good
Thank-
night.
Good
Thank
night.
you again. All right, bye.